Welcome to Behind the Grind, an entrepreneur think tank where we sit down with entrepreneurs and high-performing individuals to talk about their journey. My name is Jimmy O'Donovan, and I'm sitting here with my co-host, Tucker Massey.
Hey everyone, Behind the Grind show is sponsored by Long Hollow Creatives, a boutique co-work and co-op studio space located at 700 North Gilmore Street. Today on the cast of pods, we have Andrew Martin, who is the owner and founder of Atlas Financial Strategies, which is a local financial planning firm here in Pensacola, Florida. He has been voted the best financial advisor in Pensacola 6 times in the past 6 years. He's also been recognized as part of the top 1% of financial professionals in the United States. Andrew, how are you doing this morning?
Good. How about you guys?
Doing well.
Not
Thank you for taking
too
your time.
bad.
And I will say this about the place that we're in. I know you gave a little plug. It's
Yeah.
super cool.
It is, isn't it?
It's a super cool place, a little off the beaten path, but it is a cool. We were talking about
Right outside of downtown.
Yeah, we were talking about the building itself, and
Yeah, over 120 years old now, and
Yeah.
it's crazy.
so many of these little spots in Pensacola that people don't know about.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know this was here.
Yeah. So we like to shed a light on it for sure.
Yeah, it's awesome.
But how about you give the listener a little background on yourself, where you're from, how'd you get into the financial field?
Yeah, so I was born and raised in Pensacola Cantonment, actually, for those of you who know where that is.
Oh, yeah.
On the northern end of the county. So I was born and raised here. I graduated from Tate out in Cantonment. Went to school, played college football.
Where at?
I graduated from South Alabama. I bounced around a little bit, but I graduated from South Alabama there at Mobile. Going into college, I always knew I wanted to work for myself. I've always been entrepreneurial. I always was self-aware enough to know that I would not make a good employee, that I would have to work for myself. So I always knew that I wanted to do that. And went into college thinking I wanted to own a gym. You know, it sounds romantic. Hey, I got to be in the gym all day. I'm a business owner. All that. So that's what I thought I wanted to do. A couple of years into college, I started actually thinking about, all right, what's it going to take to, to do this? So kind of like we were talking about earlier, it sounds like a good idea, but in practice, it was not for me. I'm not going to say it's a bad idea for the gym owners out there. I hope you guys are making it work, but it just wasn't what I wanted to do.
The numbers didn't line up for you.
Yeah, it didn't make as much sense to me. So anyways, then it was kind of like, well, I know I still want to work for myself, so then, what do I want to do? So when I went to South Alabama, my roommate, his cousin, worked for New York Life in the financial industry. And so, we went to lunch a few times, and I really didn't think anything about it. And, but, in talking to him, I was like, that's an interesting, being in the financial field is interesting. I get to work for myself. I get to, do what I'm passionate about as far as making money. And when I say make money, I don't mean necessarily for myself, but I like to, growing up, my favorite games were always like Monopoly, and any of those like tycoon things where you're building this empire kind of thing. Those were always my favorite, and so you kind of get to help other people do that, help them build and protect their wealth and everything else, and I make a living doing that. So it's a really nice. It's a really nice career for me and my personality to be in, but it, got my start with New York Life. It was actually, I graduated from college, put my resume out there, and it was actually the guy, my roommate's cousin, that called me, and he and I didn't recognize each other's names or anything, because we really didn't know each other that well, and it took us a second. It was that awkward, like, I feel like I know you, and it took us a second. We were like, oh, and anyways, interviewed with him, got my start with New York Life. 3 years or so after, started Atlas, and the rest is history.
Nice. So you leveraged that first job to help you start your first business? Yeah.
So this is not necessarily meant to be a plug for New York Life, but I will say I'm very lucky that I got my start with them. I wasn't necessarily looking to get my start with them, but in knowing Jacob, the guy that I was talking about, he kind of recruited me into New York Life, and the training and everything that they do. Anyways, I think that set me up for
Success.
I think that laid a good foundation for me, and then from there, kind of like we were talking about earlier, the self-education thing, especially in an industry like this, and I really think with anything, but especially in an industry like this, is very important to constantly be keeping up with all the changes and everything that goes on, because I'm a competitive person, so I know I'm not the smartest person alive.
Yeah.
I promise there are smarter financial advisors in Pensacola than I am. But I like to think that no one's going to outwork me. So, I do 12 to 15 hours of reading and research a week, just to try to stay up on all the things that are, things are just constantly changing. Yeah, keeping up with what's going on and what does that mean for, in the short term and intermediate and long term, as far as the economy and stocks and everything else goes. And, I just got back from a conference in Vegas, actually last night. And, 3 or 4 times a year I'll find conferences, in different places to go to for estate planning or, wealth management investments, or just whatever the case is, just to try to sharpen the saw. So but no, the self-education thing is, I think, extremely important, and I think that makes a difference for no matter what business you're in. I think that makes a difference for people that are have kind of a meteoric rise, and people that always just kind of just kind of hanging on.
All right. Let's talk about the business solutions side of Atlas Financial Strategies.
Mm-hmm.
How do you help business owners address their financial needs?
Yeah, with business owners, there's a lot of moving parts because they have their personal plan, they have their business plan, and while they are separate, they are also very intermingled.
Mm-hmm.
And it really depends on the business, and what I like about business planning is the complexity, and that there's, everyone is going to be so different, and you can say that about any financial plan, but with business owners in particular, because it might be a family business, so sometimes I'm playing therapist as much as I am advisor.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of moving parts, and succession planning is something I think is very important for business owners. And when I say succession planning, I really just mean exit strategy. So every business owner has an exit strategy, whether they know it or not. So what happens to the business when you decide to, you'll either die, quit, or retire. You know what I mean? So what happens to the business and your family if you were to pass away? Is it a family business? Do you have kids involved with the business? How would the business run without you? Do you have special relationships with people you're doing business with, that let's say your sons that are in the business with you don't have, are those people that your key accounts that you have these relationships with? Are they going to jump ship because they're like, hey, well, Junior over there, I don't have as much faith in him as I do with you, and and again, if you are gonna pass the business down to your kids, what's that look like? There's a guy I know that just doing what I do for a living, I can't help sometimes with just asking prying questions, because that's what I do all day.
You have to find out motives.
And even in everyday conversation when I really shouldn't be. So there's a guy I know that I went to school with his kids, and I didn't know that he owned the business that he owns, and so he and I were just kind of chit-chatting, and I was like, oh, okay, cool. I was like, you gonna have the kids run it when you, and he was like, oh yeah, I thought I was gonna, pass it to this kid, but they moved off and I'm gonna pass it to this kid. And, a follow-up question was like, oh, okay, cool. Are you gonna sell it to him, or are you gonna, how are you gonna do that? And I could tell the question made him uncomfortable. He answered anyways, and he was like, I'm just gonna have him run it, and I'm just gonna continue to draw a salary from that, and that's my retirement plan. And I'm like, that's ridiculous. First of all, I hope you have a plan B, because everything's hinging upon business continuity.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If the business doesn't do as well, or
Can't
you're gonna
afford
have
to pay you. Right?
yeah, I mean, it's a crazy plan. So, I mean, people have these, you know, they have the way that they think things are gonna work out, and because the business and their family and everything else is so close to their heart, they can't see some of the, you know, some of the pitfalls, I think, in their plan.
Especially when it's your baby.
Oh.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's the thing too, even if the plan is to sell the business down the road, what it's worth to the business owner is gonna be completely different than what it's worth to somebody that's coming in wanting to buy it. You know, the business owner is gonna think it's worth way more.
Right.
Yeah, they don't see it as a business. They see it as
That's their,
one of their child's.
yeah, I mean, it's a piece of them, you know, it's, yeah. Yeah, and it's, anyway, so just understanding the value of the business as part of our financial plan. We have estate planning and business planning and tax planning attorneys and CPAs and CFPs and a CVA, certified valuation analyst. And so, you know, what they do is help the business owner value the business. If the business owner is looking to sell it within the next, you know, 5 or so years, we'll help them look at marketability, you know, how to increase the value of the business, increase the marketability so they're able to sell it and sell it for a higher value, right? And then, you know, are there things like, so we worked with a business owner that, husband and wife, the wife was, it was really the husband running it. The wife couldn't do it without him, you know? And, they had an older couple, they were looking to retire, they wanted to sell the business in like 8 to 10 years and sail off into the sunset, you know? And, Mr. Owner becomes terminal, so all that goes out the window, you know? So they're gonna have to sell it, either try to sell it sooner than they wanted to or whatever, but point is, like most business owners, they had everything tied up in the business. So, I mean, that's the thing with most business owners too, and I agree, the business owner's argument is I can get a better return on my business than I can in stocks and, you know, other types of investments, and for the most part, that is true. So I agree with them, but everything's hinging upon the sale of that business, you know what I mean? Because they have very little assets otherwise. They have a little bit of, you know, stocks or retirement accounts, and they usually have some properties, you know, some real estate. But besides that, they don't have anything. So that was the case with this guy. And so he becomes terminal. So he's like, well, you know, we don't have anything else really, so I need to make sure my wife can, you know, have something. So they had 2 key guys that were integral to running the business. And so, you know, we looked at potentially them buying it, that wouldn't work, so they were gonna have to sell it to, you know, a third party. But when we looked at the value of the business, a large portion of the value of the business was hinging upon those 2 guys sticking around. So if they realize that Mr. Owner is terminal and we're gonna get sold to, you know, who knows?
Yeah.
Should we be looking for greener pastures, or are we gonna stick around through all this, or, you know, so even if one of those guys left, it would drastically change the value of the business. So we structured what we call, a layman's term, is a stay bonus, so like a 10-year stay bonus, to where the business puts aside X amount of dollars per year for this employee that remains a corporate asset over that period of time. So if you know, worker A were to leave, he gets nothing. But if he stuck around for that 10 years and it's paid out to him over, you know, the stated terms over X period of time, X amount of dollars. Because we needed to kind of have some golden handcuffs to make sure those guys stick around.
Right.
You know, because I mean, if they were in talks with somebody about selling the business and it was valued, you know, based on whatever the value is based on those guys sticking around, and again, one of those guys leave, if I'm the buyer, I'm like, oh, well, we gotta get back to the negotiating table, because I ain't paying that now that, you know, worker A left, you know.
What are some of the most common questions that are brought to you, or concerns as a client?
I guess it would depend on, are we talking about non-business owners?
Oh, business
owners,
business
owners?
Maybe someone that's just starting out.
Yeah, so I will say the succession planning that I was just talking about is a big concern for business owners that they don't know they have, so that's rarely brought up to me.
Yeah.
Usually it's employee retention.
Okay.
So for maybe not somebody starting out, but maybe somebody a little more,
Couple years in.
Yeah, that they have some key people that, you know, especially in a tight labor market like we are right now,
Mm-hmm.
where when jobs are scarce, people are just happy to have a job.
Right.
When things are tough, but when things are good like they are now, people always think there's greener pastures. I mean, that's so I think the struggle is for a business owner, do you just pay people more? Because, there's all the ancillary stuff like, making sure that the employee feels respected and,
Right.
there's all that, which.
The culture within business, and then
Absolutely.
can you afford that culture?
Right. And I will say, and I hope I'm not, my assistant, I mean, I pay her, close to, 20 to 30% more than, I pay her quite a bit more than, somebody in her, I talk to
Role
her
in
financial
another
advisor
business. Yeah.
friends and stuff, and I tell her how much I'm paying her. They all kind of laugh at me. They're like, wow, you're paying her, like $12,000 a year more than you really,
Right.
than you should. And I told her that when I hired her. I said, look, I know I'm overpaying you. And I said, why do you think I'm paying you $12,000 a year more than you're gonna get pretty much anywhere else for this role? And I said, it's because I expect this level
Right.
of, I'm not.
Performance results.
Yeah, I believe in you and I want you to, perform to this level. And I'm happy to
You
pay
wanna
you
see
for
her
that if you
succeed.
do that. Right. And so she's amazing. She does a killer job. But I will say for people just starting out, kind of like we were, hitting on earlier, is the day-to-day, how do you, the procedural, the functionality of the business. It could be things from how do we drive sales, how do we keep key people, and I think really with anybody, whether they're business owners or not, cash flow management, money coming in, money going out, where is it better utilized? I think that is one of the most important aspects of any financial plan, regardless of if that's a business owner or not. But I think a lot of business owners struggle with scaling.
Yeah.
How do we scale without do we just spend more money to make more money?
Right.
And, the percentage is the same. We're making more money, but it's still, 20% profitability or something like that. So I think that is something that is most often brought to me, just kind of like, how do we do this? How do we do this? It's, for somebody just starting out, that's typically the thing it is. And I will say, and again, like we were talking about before the podcast started, for those that are listening that maybe have a business idea and want to be a business owner and everything else, you may be a very talented whatever it is that you're talented at.
Number 2.
But you might not be a good.
At number 1.
Right. You might not be a good business owner.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I'm not saying that you can't be. I'm just saying you need to learn effectively how to run a business before you start a business.
And you see that a lot in the service-based industry, where you're working for someone else, whether you're paying rent to someone or they're getting commission on your work, and you have that entrepreneurship seizure, where similar to what we were talking about in the last podcast, you have that seizure and you're like, why am I not out on my own doing this for myself, keeping the money?
Yeah.
But you learn fast that you don't need to work in the business, you need to work on the business. So personally, I just started a service-based business. I got my LLC a month ago.
Good for you, man.
Thank you. Yeah. Put yourself in my shoes. So I'm service-based. Just started my business. I want to manage my cash flow effectively. I want to, I don't want to be the statistic of, an LLC failing in 2 years, not making it. How do I manage my cash flow from the get-go to where I'll succeed in the long run?
What kind of business is it? Can you
Personal
say?
training.
Personal training.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or it could be, photography. Could be
Yeah, no matter what that it is.
whatever that service is.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll just, and again, maybe these same principles, every business is different, so.
Right.
But I will say for what you do, are you trying to focus on strictly in-person personal training?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, so
just
no
face to
virtual.
face. Nope. Everything
Okay.
face to face.
I will say that's a hard thing to scale.
Right.
I will say that, and I'm gonna get the bad stuff out first. I will say that's a hard thing to scale because the scalability is dependent upon your time.
Yeah. Not trying to scale it or have people work under me,
Okay.
but just being able to survive, pay myself, and we'll get into what I've implemented. But I want to hear your.
Gotcha. So basically, just what do you do with the money coming in, and how is it? How do you grow the business, or I guess what's the?
Yeah. How would I grow the business to where I have money in the bank. I'm able to pay myself a salary.
Yeah.
I'm able to pay expenses,
Mhm.
and if I have a family, if I have kids, I'm able to support my family.
What kind of expenses do you have with personal training?
It could just maybe equipment.
Okay.
Do
you spend money on marketing or any of that?
Yeah,
kind of
some
stuff?
marketing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when I got my start with New York Life, my first year, I didn't have the necessary licenses to be able to charge people fees as far as like financial planning fees or fees for advice or anything like that. So it's strictly commission based.
Okay.
So you can imagine how, feast or famine it can be.
Right.
Where you might have a month where you make way more than you need, and then you might have months where you make virtually nothing, and then it just goes in cycles. And so one of the best pieces of advice that I got my first year in the business was figure out what your salary is or needs to be, how much income you need, and then you pay yourself that. So if it's to keep numbers nice and round, if you needed $5,000 a month, if you made $10,000 this month, you have a savings account. Let's say it's a high yield savings account. That would be the most efficient thing to do. But high yield savings account, then you have your normal savings and checking that you use. This one is just a pool of money that you don't really use. And then once a month, $5,000 comes out of that, goes into your checking account, and that's your salary for that month. So if you made 10 grand this month, great, 5,000 stays in the pool account. You know what I mean? If you made 3,000 this month, well then hopefully we have enough in the pool to dip into that other, to get that other 2,000 that we need.
Gotcha.
So that way, hopefully this is growing until you get to the point where you can do something else with that, maybe pay yourself a little bit more, or find other ways to leverage that. Do we purchase income producing properties with that to help us increase our income that way? Because that's something that, and I will say it's very popular for people to say that, investment properties are and I love in real estate investing. I'm not saying, anything negative about it, but, the whole passive income thing, for anybody that's owned properties, they'll say it's not all that passive. You're not directly working for the money, but it's not like you can just sit back and relax and let the money roll in, right? There's still things you got to do. You still got to know what you're doing,
right.
All that. So but that might be a way that if you can use your income, and hopefully you are making more than you need. Hopefully you're being responsible with the income that you're getting, and you're not, buying a fancy car that you don't need.
Right.
Anything crazy with it, And then if you can use that other income, the overage, if you will, to help produce other income, whether that be investing in other businesses, maybe that you're a passive, an investor or owner in the business, or properties, or what have you, because that would be the way. Besides you charging more, besides you getting a quote unquote better clientele, people that with bigger pockets that can pay you more per hour. That would be one of the best ways to, in my mind, because there's businesses that you can grow and isn't reliant. You don't have to be there necessarily.
Right, but
That's
in
not the
service-based
case here.
industry, yeah, if
That's
you're,
right.
yeah.
Yeah.
Let's take it back a little bit in the conversation. You were talking about scaling. You have an instance where business is looking to grow, and again, easy math. They have 50 grand, but that needs to be used for assets and everything. How do you approach that? Do you use that 50 to purchase all equipment, again, assets, or do you use that 50 on a business loan to be able to keep money in the bank?
What kind of business? It could be anything.
Yeah,
I guess.
anything.
I guess when you think about it, think about how you could relate to someone that's
Yeah.
listening to the podcast, whether it's service-based or selling a product.
I know there's a lot of things that I know I sound like an attorney when I say it, but there's a lot of things that are, my answer almost always has to be, it depends. So
Yeah.
it would depend on a lot of things,
Okay.
but, so I would say it would depend on if the equipment that you're going to purchase, so you also, hopefully all business owners are working with a good CPA as well, and that can help you if you are going to purchase business, should you take the, I'm not gonna get into tax advice, but how should you do that? Is it beneficial for you to do that or to do it a different way?
Right.
Is the equipment you're buying going to directly bring you more money?
There's an
Like, is
ROI
that-
on
yeah.
what you're buying.
Yeah, or is it gonna be something that I have this equipment and it's basically just a store of value? Like I know I could sell it for roughly the same thing that I bought it for down the road, but it's gonna help me, whatever it is. I mean, people would say, and I'm getting a little off, but again, my assistant picking on her. Some people look at that as a cost. Well, you pay her X amount of dollars, per year, that's a direct cost. Well, it's also an investment, not necessarily an investment that I can put a number on to say, well, she makes me X amount of dollars, per year. If I pay her $50,000 and she makes me $100,
Right.
then but it's hard to do that. So, but I will say that I think, depending on the business, maybe equipment, maybe an employee, might be a good way to spend that money. Like, all right, well, I have this 50, I'm gonna pay this person 50 grand and I have 50 grand in the bank. I have a year of their salary, or whatever, just kind of over here.
I guess a better way to ask it would be, you, instead of taking on debt, taking on a loan, do you just spend that 50 knowing that, okay, once that 50's gone, it's no longer there, I don't have any left in the savings, or do I use that 50 to leverage?
I got what you're saying. So maybe take a loan and keep the 50 in the bank instead of spending the 50 directly.
Right.
Gotcha. Okay. I would say it would depend on what interest you could get on the loan.
Yeah.
But assuming you can get a fair interest, I think good debt is fine.
Yeah.
I mean, as long as, credit card debt and stuff like that,
Right.
maybe not. But there are stories of people who, people that we all know the names of, famous entrepreneurial people who, had to purchase things on credit cards and do things like that, and it ended up working out for them. It could have went the other way,
Right.
but I'm sure for every one of those, there's 10 at least, that it went the other way. But no, I would say I'm not one of those people that say you should never take on debt, especially for business purposes. Again, as long as you are utilizing that debt in a way that is going to make you money. And that's another thing too. There's a difference between people that are serious and good investors where they know, if I'm going to invest in something, I'm pretty much positive this is going to make me money. Like, I have a client that I had lunch with him a few weeks ago, and he was telling me about, he got asked to kind of pool in some money with some investors that are kind of above his pay grade, so to speak, and I guess it's just people that he knows, and he was like, oh, yeah, okay, yeah, I'll do this, because he knows that these people are, if they're going to put money in something, it's pretty much a slam dunk.
Right.
And he's like, they need to know every little detail. And so I think that's another thing too, is, some business owners might take on some debt,
Yeah.
and not have a very good plan or not have any kind of definitive like, hey, the juice is gonna be worth the squeeze. This is
Right.
gonna make me money versus, hey, I just need more money and I don't really have a plan with it, but I just need more money and I'm gonna do this, that, or the other. Maybe it'll make me money, maybe it won't. And, I think debt is a good tool. Debt's emotional.
Right.
And so whether you're a business owner or not, I think the average person doesn't know how to leverage debt in their favor the way that people, quote unquote, with money
Right.
do.
Okay.
Like, how do you think banks make money? They're not using their money, they're using other people's money.
Right.
So if I gave the bank my money, I'm just making up these numbers, so, if I gave the bank, $100,000, they're gonna give me 1%, let's say, and they're gonna loan that out and charge somebody 4%, and they're keeping the difference.
Right.
That's how banks make money.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so people with money do the same thing, especially while interest rates are low. Hey, if I can borrow the bank's money or somebody else's money and pay them a low percentage, let's say 4%, and if I can take that money and make anything more than 4%, I am net ahead. And depending on what type of debt and what you're utilizing it for, that 4% interest that you're paying could be a tax write-off, right? And then if I took that $100,000 that I never had anyways, and I paid the bank 4%, and I made 6%, I made $2,000 on money that I never had. I used somebody else's money and made money on money that I never had in the first place.
Right.
Yeah.
Now to do that, you gotta know that you can make money with it and that it's gonna make more than 4%, you know what I mean? But we're at a point now where interest rates are so incredibly low that, you can get money for virtually nothing. And if you can make anything more than that, you are net ahead. And I run into, this is for anybody listening, I think, but I run into so many people that really feel like they're doing a good thing by paying off their mortgage as fast as they can, or even paying cash for a house, which I think all of that's crazy. Again, there's an emotional element to debt.
Right.
So if by doing that it helps you sleep better at night and all that, then there's
There's definitely two sides to the art. Right.
Certainly,
Yeah.
but when you actually just look at the numbers, if you're paying the bank 4% for your mortgage and you can take that money, and I've actually ran the numbers before, I don't have them memorized, but again, if you're making 6% on that money, again, you end up being net ahead. Not only does the money is a better, a more efficient use of the dollar if you take that money and invest it, if you're getting anything more than that 4%, but you have options with that money now.
Right.
Once that money goes into your mortgage, it's virtually gone. Like, you might have some more equity in your home that you could maybe take a second mortgage out on or something. So the argument is always, well, if crap hits the fan, at least I know that the mortgage is paid off and I won't have that payment. I'm like, okay, well, even if you're paying extra towards it, you got a 30-year loan, and whatever you're paying extra towards it, let's say it's gonna be paid off in 20 years, that's still 20 years that crap can hit the fan,
Right.
that you still have a mortgage payment. So you're banking on something not happening for at least 20 years, number one. Number two, if crap does hit the fan, would you rather have $1,500 a month less that you have to pay out in the, in a mortgage?
Yeah.
Or would you rather have tens of thousands of dollars sitting around somewhere
Saved up.
that you can pull from? It's again, there's an emotional element to it, and people make decisions based on emotion, and then they justify with logic. So my job is just to show people numbers. Here's the numbers. If you still want to pay extra towards your mortgage, I just want you to understand the opportunity cost of that money. I went on a tangent. But
Done.
We go on a lot of tangents.
Yeah.
That's the beautiful thing about podcasts, is the tangents.
All right. Well, that's one of the things that I actively have to prove that, because people's parents have told them, grandparents, people they work with, whoever, oh, you should pay off all your debt as soon as you can, pay off your mortgage as soon as all that other kind of stuff. And so
Sounds like you're not a Dave Ramsey fan. Let me think about this.
So there's a lot of things. So just about any financial advisor will tell you that there are a lot of things that Dave preaches that is absolutely correct. And there's a lot of things that he preaches that I don't want to say are incorrect, but
Not for everyone.
yeah, I think the debt elimination and the budgeting stuff, Absolutely. I mean, everybody, again, that's the foundation. Everybody needs that.
I mean, you can't spend more than you make. That
Right.
budgeting 101.
Well, I mean, I can.
Yeah, well, not for long.
Right.
Yeah. But, some of the other things, again, really don't, and almost all financial advisors will tell you, some of the things just really don't make sense. But, anyways, I just, numbers are numbers, and you can't give. What he's doing is giving blanket advice, which you can't do. Again, there's certain things, debt elimination and budgeting.
Right.
That's blanket advice. Yeah, don't spend more than you make.
Right.
And have some sort of budget that you're sticking to, some sort of cash flow management. But beyond that, again, some of the stuff it needs to be used as a template, and people can adjust it based on their own.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Uh,
What's
Reel it back in.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
sorry.
Sorry.
What's
What's
center?
What's one thing that you've learned in your journey as an entrepreneur that you wish you could go back and grab your younger self and shake them and say, don't do this or do this?
Man, I tell you what, probably a lot of things. How much time we got?
All right.
Just one.
Okay.
The biggest one.
I will say, so the people that knew me when I got my start in the industry and were there. So Jacob, the guy that I was telling you about, that kind of recruited me to New York Life, and he was my manager, so he was the one developing me and doing all that and teaching me and all that. Boy, he should have fired me. I would have fired me. Oh man. Yeah, so if you're new in business, and if you have somebody who is proven and is successful in business, and they're trying to give you advice, don't think you know better, because you don't. Because that was me. I'm bullheaded, and I thought I knew better, and I thought, they're saying, well, here's the recipe, man. Here's how to bake this cake. Here's all the ingredients, and here's how to do it. Do it. And I was like, nope, you know what? I'm going to do it the way that I want to do it. And it did not make a delicious cake, is what I'm saying. So, if there's people that have been doing it and know the recipe, and they're trying to give you advice and trying to help you, listen to them and do it the way that they say, because that was something that I did not do. So anyways, I wasted about a year. So with New York Life, you have like a minimum standard.
Okay.
Just to be, like you have to produce this much, and in your first 12 months or whatever, or we're not going to keep you. So I was barely over that first year, and so come the end of my first year, I went into Jacob's office sweatier than normal, and was like, am I gonna have a job next month, or should I be looking? Can you at least just let me know? And he was like, no, you were, proactive is what they call it. You met the standard. He's like, barely. So he's like, if you do that next year, you won't be here. Okay. And then I kind of had that come to Jesus with myself of like, well, do I find something else to do besides this? Or do I suck it up and make this work? And so I kind of had that, like, well, is there anything else that I think I could do that would give me all the things that this career gives me that I want in a career and that I enjoy doing? And the answer was no, a very strong no. And I was like, okay, it's time to grow up and do this. And then that next year was, it's all history from there, because I actually did what they told me to do, which is amazing.
Take it back even further in your life. You mentioned earlier that you always had this entrepreneurship, and when was the first time you realized? What was your first sale?
Lemonade stand.
How old were you? What was?
So Dad has had me cutting our yard, doing our yard work since I was 7, and he said, because that's what I had you for. So I've
phenomenal.
Yes. Yeah.
Jimmy's gonna use that.
Yeah. So I've been doing that for a long time, probably since I was, 11 or 12. Dad made this homemade little crappy green trailer. I don't know why we painted it green. It was a horrible green, but this little trailer that I could pull behind the lawnmower. We had a little 4-wheeler at the time, and I could go around. We didn't live in the neighborhood, but go around, houses near us, and do people's yards. And so it's just big enough, this little trailer, to fit a push mower and a weed eater and a can of gas, and so I would go around and do that and make, $20-30 here and there and do odd jobs for people. And I always liked that, I was back when I was in shape and I could get in there and do it in 30 minutes and make $25, bust butt in 30 minutes and make $25. And I was like, man, this isn't a bad way to make some money. And I always liked being paid for the job, being paid for my production, not for my time.
Okay.
Because then I remember also my Nana, who is the matriarch of the family. She's the queen bee. You never upset Nana, so if she asks you to do something, you do it. So she had some friends that were moving, and if you can imagine, these people in their 80s are hoarders. I mean, they had an entire semi-truck trailer that we filled with stuff. And so I get there, and I look, and I'm the only one there. And so I look around at all the boxes. They had everything boxed up for the most part, by the way, thank God. But I looked around and I was like, oh my God, I'm going to be here. This is going to take 2 days, So I, 2 or 3 boxes at a time, was, almost running to and from, with these boxes, loaded it up. Took me 4 hours. And I remember the guy saying, oh, okay, great job. 4 hours, $10 an hour, here's $40. And I was like, I was like, this would have taken a crew of 3 an entire day, and you would have paid them,
A lot of money.
yeah, probably over $1,000, I don't know. But, and I was like, I never want to work above an hour.
Yeah.
I never want to get paid for my time. I want to get paid for my production. So, that was back, anyways, I've known for a long time that I want to get paid for my production. I don't want to get paid for my time because in my opinion, there's no incentive. There's no incentive. I think I wish more jobs were paid based on performance or production versus by the hour. Because Jimmy, me and you might be doing the same job. You might be working circles around me, but if we have the same position and everything else being equal, we're getting paid probably roughly the same.
Right.
And you're hoping for a promotion,
Yeah.
Maybe you get one, maybe you don't. Anyways, so I've known for a long time that that's what I wanted to do.
Gotcha. Before we start wrapping up, have you ever read the book Profit First?
I'm actually listening to it now.
Sweet. So, I think this will help out a lot of new business owners and old business owners out there. So, I've read the book Profit First. Pretty much the basis behind it is you have 5 bank accounts, 5 business accounts. 2 of those being checking, or 3 being checking, 2 being savings. 2 of the checking, you have your salary, and then you have your operating expenses, and then the 2 savings are taxes and your profit. So every time you get paid, 50% of that goes into your salary, 30% goes operating expenses, 15% goes into tax, 5% goes into profit. Jimmy's really proud of me right now that I got up to 100%
Yes.
on that. All right. So with my personal training business, that's what I've started to implement. Every time I get paid, that's where the money goes.
Yeah.
As a financial advisor, a financial professional, what are your thoughts on the Profit First system?
Yeah, I think again, as long as people have some sort of plan that they are following, and if that's, again, something that's proven that works, as long as you stick to it, I think that makes a lot of sense. And so I think where people get themselves in trouble is they're just kind of willy-nilly, what I mean? They're just kind of doing whatever. There's no real structure or plan, and so I like the structure of that. And if it, for some people that might work very well for some people it might not for whatever reason, but if that works well for you, then absolutely. So I like it, is what I'm saying. So just, people need to have something like that they're sticking to, and they need to stick to it. Yeah.
Cool.
Great question.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
absolutely.
Thank you, Jimmy.
You're not just a pretty face, man.
Yeah,
There's a lot of brains in there too.
I know.
Yeah.
Have you seen our content? That's all me.
Yeah. So you mentioned
Might change
that's
the
the one you're very quickly. You're listening to Profit First.
Yeah.
What else do you consume? What are the kind of content, books you read, podcasts you listen to?
Oh man, there's a lot of really good books, and I think it probably just depends on, I've listened to some books that I guess I won't really mention that are
Number one.
more.
If you'd recommend one book, one thing that you've consumed, what's the thing that's provided you the most value?
The Obstacle is the Way. It's probably one of those, by Ryan Holiday.
Okay.
I don't know if y'all have ever listened to that or read it.
I haven't, but I've dabbled in it a little bit online.
It'll change your life. I'm telling you right now, man. I've recommended it to a few people, and a buddy recommended it to him. He was about halfway through, and he texted me. He's like, I'm about halfway through, and I'm just letting you know when I'm done with it, I'm listening to it again, immediately. And so, I mean, I've listened to it and read it a handful of times. That same author has Stillness is the Key as another book, and Ego is the Enemy. But Stillness is the Key.
I'm familiar with Ego is the Enemy.
Okay, so it's all the same guy, and they're all somewhat similar. But Stillness is the Key was one that I just recently read, and I did the same. I completed it and started reading it right back over again. It was super powerful. There's obviously the classics like How to Win Friends and Influence People. I think regardless of if you're a business owner or not, I think that's a super important book to read. Just understanding how to handle people, right? Just handle relationships and kind of
do it the right way.
Yeah. I think especially with technology and stuff, and people in our generation, especially younger, have a hard time communicating face to face.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, I think that's
We're all
really
looking
good.
down.
Yeah, I mean, we do it over text or messenger or whatever it is, but I think that's a classic that everybody should read.
What are some professional and personal 3, 5, and 10-year goals you have for yourself?
I used to work a lot more than I do now. I started taking Fridays off a couple years ago, and that was, because I'm usually out of the house before anybody else wakes up. I'm usually not home until after the kids are asleep. And so, I used to work Monday through Friday, and then would go up to the office on Sunday afternoon from like 1 or 2 to like 6 or 7, just to do some admin stuff and do stuff that I didn't have time to do during the week. And so I was like, I'm missing. My daughter was like 1.5, maybe 2 at a time. I was like, I'm just missing so much.
Right.
So I stopped working Sundays, started working Friday, or stopped working Fridays as well. And so now I just work Monday through Thursday. But point is that even that Monday through Thursday, I'm still out of the house before they wake up, and not home usually until after they go to sleep. So it wasn't that long ago, a couple months ago, I guess it was a Thursday, and my wife was like, hey Maddie, Dad's gonna be home when you wake up in the morning. And she was like, he's gonna spend the night here? And I was like, oh yeah. I was like, oh no.
Straight to the heart.
Yeah.
All the feels.
Oh man, it was bad. And so it's like, okay, well, evenings are gonna start being cut out.
Right.
So, now starting this year, one evening out of that Monday through Thursday. My last appointment's at 4, so hopefully I'm home in time for dinner and this, that, and the other. Because I'll take my last appointment at even 7 or 7:30 at night, just because some people that's the only time they can meet. So anyways, and I'm hopefully within the next 3 years, no evenings.
Yeah.
I'm just just doing that. And it's interesting when you start having kids, how I know that's not a business goal, but it kind of is,
Oh yeah, I mean the work-life balance.
Yeah. If I can continue to make more money every year and work less time and spend more time with family, I mean that's obviously key.
Yeah.
I will say 5 years. I hope to have enough staff, assistant type staff. I mean, we have planners and stuff but people that can directly take things off of my plate, to where I'm able to only work that way.
Yeah.
and continue to make more money, and where we can really focus on the clients that we really want to focus on, you know, because I mean, yeah, I mean, when I was new in my career, I mean, if you could fog a mirror, I was willing to work with you, you know what I mean? If you,
Fog a mirror.
yeah, I mean, so, you know, trying to get away, and that's a double-edged sword, because when I got in the industry, and I'm going on another tangent, I'm sorry. When I got in the industry, I was very proud to be able to work with everybody, because I feel like the financial industry, especially with some of the regulation that they're trying to push through, as with a lot of government regulation, the intent is good, but the implementation, what's going to end up happening is it's going to screw the people that they're trying to help, right? And so, you know, working with, I feel like the average or maybe the lower end of the spectrum, the lower income, or the, you know, people are kind of the people that need the help the most are gonna kind of get left out. So I'm hoping that if I can hire other advisors to handle that crowd to where they're still getting the help that they need.
Yeah.
But I just can't, I don't have the time to be able to work with those people and
right, your personal goals and your professional goals, you can't do both of them.
Right. So you know what I was gonna say earlier is that I really just want to work with, you know, the higher tier businesses and individuals that, you know, any financial advisor wants to work with.
Right.
But I also don't want to ethically, you know, leave behind the people that need the help the most. Right. If I don't have the time to do it, I need to hire people. So that's probably a 5-year plan, to have 1 or 2 advisors
in place
that are working with those people, and still, you know, I'm managing basically the advice that they're giving and everything else, so I know that they're getting good advice, because there are financial advisors and people out there that aren't, you know, that are always giving, in my opinion, the best advice. But so anyways, that's a long-winded way to give you my 3 or 5 year plan.
That's I think that's a perfect way to end it right there. Before you and Jimmy start talking about numbers and then everyone gets bored, and I'm just gonna walk out. I feel like you guys could have a great conversation.
Your numbers guy,
Numbers make him happy.
All right.
Happier than you do.
Right.
That's very true.
All right, hey Andrew, again, thank you so much.
Yeah, we really appreciate it, man.
Thanks for having me.
Pleasure.
Guys.